Tomlin made a reference the other day, kind of casually, not in any strict context, that he and Art Rooney and Omar Khan were due to have a meeting at some part of this week. We will find out in 2000 and never what was discussed in that meeting, but I can sure hope to have some ideas. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Here's a starter. Let the coordinators coordinate. And from there, let the coordinators be people who can coordinate in the year 2025. Both of those things seem like they would be, hypothetically, real upgrades for this football operation, don't they? Think of it this way. Arthur Smith interviewed yesterday for one head coaching vacancy. He's going to interview again today for another. Let's say he gets one of those two jobs. God knows why he'd want him, but it's the Jets and the Bears, and there's only 32 of them on this planet, so he made clear, even after his 3 years in Atlanta were up, that he still wanted to be a head coach. So let's say he gets one of those jobs. And then let's take it further and say that Terrell Austin is not kept on as the defensive coordinator, which is something that I've been putting forth here for a while. Okay, well, you want to create as close to a plausible, real change as you can under the same head coach. I'm not about to predict that it'll be the case, but just work with me. Change both coordinators. Bring in precisely the kind of coordinator that the Steelers, and specifically Tomlin, have never hired. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. The superstar, the young, the eggheads, the ones that'll, make you look like the Rams or make you look like the 49ers. And you watch those teams and you go, why are their receivers always open? How does that happen? How do you bring in a Puka Nacua out of the, fifth round and throw him out there and he's 20 yards open in every direction? And he's picking up an additional 10, 15 yards after every catch just by existing because he's been schemed to have that much grass around him. Well, you look at the Steelers by comparison, even when Deontay Johnson was here and he was productive and he was sitting at or near the top of all of those NFL advanced analytic rankings about an ability to get open, it still never felt like anybody was ever open here. That, by the way, is a general problem that was there for all 18 games of this season. It never went away. It never improved. Job number one of a modern offensive coordinator is scheming the wide receivers open. The Steelers were not good at this under Smith. Maybe they would be good at it if they tried this thing I'm talking about. Now, defensively, obviously, this is a lot trickier because the head coach is going to take over no matter who it is that you bring in, unless the chairman of the board, the owner, sits in that meeting with Tomlin and Khan, looks Tomlin in the eye and says, all right, I did bring you back, but this time we're going to do it my way because your way hasn't worked in a while. We're going to try mine. We're going to get you coordinators. We're going to spend. We're going to search. We're going to scour. And we're going to place absolutely zero priority on whether or not they'll be subservient to you. We just want the two best people to be our coordinators, the two best people that we can find to bring this team into this century. Any questions? No? Good. Yeah, I know. You're rolling your eyes through the whole thing. It's not going to happen. None of this is going to happen. But it should. And the only reason that I want to lay it out for you today is that it's not that there aren't answers. It's not that there aren't ways to try to change things, to shake them up, to just make them better. Even if you're going to be so head in the sand to keep Tomlin on board, but they're not even going to do those. They're not even going to do those. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from John, who says, DK, why does it seem the Steelers draft high-quality players just to move them to an unfamiliar position? It seems to me that the players struggle after the move. John, what I wish you had done with this question is offer a couple of names or examples so that I could address, each of them individually. As it is, I'm going to take a stab because I did mention earlier this week that Keanu Benton is a guy. He hasn't been asked to change positions, but he's been cast in more of a traditional nose tackle role than he has as, let's say, Stephon Tuitt Part 2, where you would just put him next to Cam Hayward as a bookend and tell them both, go get it, go eat. That's not really where Benton is. They put Cam and Larry Ogunjobi into those roles, and Larry O's not what he was, and that's understandable. He's into his 30s. I don't know how much longer he's going to play. But there's also no doubt in my mind that Benton's being underutilized, possibly criminally underutilized, commensurate to his talent level. Why do they do it? Well, the best answer to that is to first point out that they've been doing it a long time, and by the way, with some significant success. They usually have to draft players out of defenses that are not 3-4. Why? Because the 3-4 is nowhere near as prevalent as the 4-3. So what they're looking for is, I'm trying to find a way to word this. It's a meat market, okay? They're looking for players who can physically perform the tasks that they need out of their 3-4 slots, slide them into those slots, and maybe in the process get better value out of a later draft pick. Because let's say somebody wouldn't have recognized what Alex Highsmith could do for them because in Highsmith's time at Charlotte, they wouldn't have seen necessarily that he could be an OLB in a 3-4 because they wouldn't care because they don't run a 3-4. Lamar Woodley, if you want to go back further, Lamar was a classic case of this. Lamar was just seen as the perfect physical specimen for 3-4. He didn't play anything like it in college, but he ate it up. He loved it too. And until he got hurt, he looked like, just a great pick and a great fit. So that's the answer to that. Most of this sort of thing in this subject matter tends to be associated with the 3-4. But now to swing it back to Benton, that doesn't mean you have to keep stuffing square pegs into round holes. In general, one of my biggest concerns and criticisms of this defense was that they had players participating as starters who were not being maximized for what it is that they can bring. Just throwing in the salary for fun, if you're paying Minkah Fitzpatrick $18.4 million a year, try to get something close to $18.4 million of value out of him. Don't have him just sitting in the back waiting for other people to screw up. That's what that was. That's what that alignment was. Minkah was so far. This was for me, a running gag like through the entire season, because now the NFL has moved press boxes mostly to the end zones. So we're seeing things from behind. We're seeing things in the direction that the game is played. So when the other team is heading in our direction, Minka was there in front of us like a half hour before the rest of the drive. And I'm going to guess that part of the reason that this didn't become a bigger point of public discussion is that the TV angles just aren't wide enough to show you where Minka is. A game that's being played in Denver, Minka's in Wyoming. So much has to be rethought about that defense. It really does. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.